Hey, it's Frank Romaskas here from NeverColdCall.com, and today I'd like to give you a presentation on cold calling from my perspective as a business owner. Now, 9 years ago, I started my Never Cold Call Again sales training business, where I teach salespeople how to prospect without cold calling. At the time, I really thought that cold calling wouldn't even exist anymore today, but unfortunately, it still does. Even worse, I'm still receiving hate mail on a daily basis from people who have a bizarre emotional connection to cold calling. When I say that cold calling doesn't work, people react as though I'm bad-mouthing their very children. To make matters worse, most sales organizations across the board are still teaching their teams to cold call. Why are they doing this? Well, to be honest, I really have no idea. Having personally made the transition from a cold calling salesperson to a successful business owner, I can tell you that it's a very eye-opening experience to now sit on this side of the table. And furthermore, cold calling is especially ridiculous from this vantage point. For starters, cold calls never reach me. I've set up my office and business phone system so that I'm never bothered by them. The receptionist simply transfers cold calls to a special mailbox designated for them, and guess what? It's never checked. I'll let you in on another secret. This is becoming a very common practice among small business owners, executives, and other desirable prospects. And this is the reason why your voicemails that you leave when you're cold calling never get a return call. Is this rude? Because many say it is, but I don't think so. Rude is when you're buried under a pile of work in a hectic schedule and suddenly you're interrupted by a cold call. To make matters worse, 98% of salespeople, by my estimate, aren't calling because they can give any real value. They're calling because they desperately need to make a sale because you can give it to them. In other words, they're interrupting your busy day in order to take something from you rather than to give value. Now, are all salespeople takers? And I would say no, absolutely not. Many salespeople give tremendous value far beyond the price of their product or service. But they're in such high demand and so flooded with referrals that they don't have to bother with cold calling. I know that when I reached the stage of maturity as a salesperson, where I began to focus on what I could give to prospects rather than how many sales I could get, I found myself literally overwhelmed with referral business. Now, here's another interesting fact. A few years back, the Keenan Flagler Business School at the University of North Carolina conducted a study on cold calling, and they concluded that over 80% of business executives absolutely, positively will not buy as the result of a cold call. This also means that 20% of people will. And this is why the cold calling works crowd is all fighting for that same 20% of the market and deluding themselves into believing that cold calling works, all because they get a sale every now and then from that 20%. The rest of us who are using intelligent self-marketing and prospecting techniques are happily getting checks and signed contracts from the other 80%. We're also building long-lasting relationships with them, which means lots of referral business for a long time to come. There's also a perception aspect with cold calling. As a small business owner, when I receive a cold call, my first question that goes through my mind is, why is this person cold calling? Why don't they have enough referrals? What kind of horrible service are they giving to their customers that they don't have enough referral business and they have to make cold calls? It also makes me question the salesperson's employer. What's wrong with this company that they're not running a marketing campaign to generate leads? Are they so broke that they can't afford to and they have to send people out cold calling instead? If they're that broke, will they still be in business in 1 year or in 5 years to service my needs and stand behind their products? But I'm not going to argue with the cold calling works crowd because that is a lost cause. If I do, they'll just call me lazy for not cold calling. But while they're out cold calling, we're all laughing to the bank while they just go out and make more calls, hoping to hang on to a job for another month. And of course, at some point in the day, they stop to send me an email to call me an idiot. What they fail to realize is that cold calling is extremely time consuming. If they would just stop for a minute to think about how much more money they make by spending all the hours they waste cold calling and instead use it to be face to face with qualified prospects, rather than looking for new prospects, their income would go up exponentially. But as Napoleon Hill said, 98 out of every 100 people are not willing to go the extra mile. They'll simply be satisfied with the status quo and whatever life hands them. And that's my interpretation of people who insist that cold calling works. If you don't want to be one of those 98 out of every 100 people who won't take the personal initiative to find a better way and to cold call, then go to my website, nevercoldcall.com, where you can download a free 37-page preview of the Never Cold Call Again system, which will show you how to stop cold calling and start selling instead. Thank you.